Something has already begun to move, and most people have no idea that it is happening. These early days of June are doing something profoundly different. Between June 1st and June 7th, we are entering what can only be described as a spiritual expansion zone, a place that will leave your spirit completely transformed. And in the coming days, things will begin to unfold in ways you did not expect, with effects that will shape not just this week, but the direction of everything that follows. This is the energy that is coming in now. And what you need to understand above all else is that there is a type of debt that almost no one talks about. It is not karma, not in the sense that people use that word casually. I am talking about karmic debt, the invisible weight that people carry after giving too much and receiving almost nothing in return, the silent battles you fought while still showing up for everyone else, the nights you held others up while no one asked how you were doing inside. Most people believe these experiences stay with them forever. But this week something unusual begins to happen. Between today and June 7th, many people will feel a strange sense of relief, and they won't understand exactly why. A memory that used to hurt won't hit the same way. A chapter that seemed unfinished may simply stop demanding your energy. And this might feel almost uncomfortable, because for so long, carrying that weight became part of your identity. Now, as powerful as this week is, there is something you need to grasp before moving forward. Not every spiritual window works automatically in your favor. Some weeks are made to lift you, to guide you, and to clear things from your path. But this week is different. It amplifies whatever state you choose to live in, and that means if you move consciously, it can feel liberating. But if you move on autopilot, you may end up fighting battles that were never meant for you. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what is moving behind the scenes of your life, which doors are closing because your future needs to pass through another entrance, and why so many things that seemed confusing start to make sense from here on out. And more than that, you will discover what most people will miss this week without even realizing it, and why those who hear the call now will look back in a few months and realize that everything started exactly in these days. But before we reach the conclusion, before we understand what is taking shape, we need to go back to the beginning. We need to look at what is already happening silently beneath the surface of your life, and why so many people around you seem to be acting strangely without being able to explain why. To understand the magnitude of this week, you need to understand the terrain you are stepping on. June is not an ordinary month. It opens the second energetic half of the year, the point where everything you planted since January begins to show the truth. What was illusion begins to fall away. What was real begins to take hold. And this first week acts as a door, a narrow, demanding, but absolutely revealing door. The first signs are already appearing. Perhaps you have noticed in the last few days a tiredness that doesn't match what you have done. People who once occupied a huge space in your head have started to seem distant without explanation. Conversations that used to excite you now sound hollow. You find yourself looking at your own routine as if it belonged to someone else. These are not signs that something is wrong. They are signs that something is being realigned. Think of someone who spent years running inside a room that became too small. For a long time, the person didn't notice the size of the room because they were too busy running. It was only when they stopped that they realized the ceiling was low, that the walls were closing in, that place was never the destination, just a station. That is exactly the effect this week has on those who are attentive. It forces you to stop running long enough for you to see the real size of your life. And here enters the first major turning point. Many people will interpret this pause as a crisis. They will think they are losing their will, losing their rhythm, losing their focus. But what is happening is the opposite. What is losing intensity is not you. It is what no longer fits you. And when this happens, a question arises that will haunt many people this week. If I am no longer who I was, then who am I now? And this is exactly where I need to tell you something important before we move on to the next few days. Because understanding the spiritual movement of this week is one thing, but knowing how to translate this movement into real prosperity, into concrete abundance in your material life is something completely different. And many people perceive the spiritual awakening, feel the call, feel the realignment, but keep looking at their own bank account, wondering why their material life isn't keeping up. The Fortune Blueprint was built exactly to close this gap. It is the silent method that has been helping thousands of people transform spiritual awakening into the concrete attraction of wealth, activating the prosperity codes that were dormant within you. It is not about forcing, it is not about sweating while asking the universe for money. It is not about repeating empty affirmations in front of the mirror. It is about reprogramming the exact frequency that makes abundance find you, even when you are resting. If this week has pulled you into stillness, it is because wealth needs space to arrive. And the Fortune Blueprint teaches you how to open this space the right way. The link is down here in the description. Those who enter now enter through the right window. You will understand why in a few days. Now back to what is happening within you. This initial awakening is just the base. It is the first layer of what this week brings. Because starting on the 4th, the terrain changes. And it is exactly at this point that many people will begin to feel things they have never felt before. The first thing you absolutely cannot do this week is turn against yourself. And most people do this without even realizing it. They make a small mistake. They have a bad day. They wake up with low energy. They have an emotional trigger. And immediately their inner voice turns hostile. They start to question their own progress, to doubt their own path, to doubt their own purpose, to doubt even if they have really grown at all. But listen to this carefully. Self-sabotage doesn't just drain your energy. It teaches your spirit to hesitate. And hesitation is too expensive during a week like this, because between June 1st and June 7th, there is a movement happening beneath the surface. Silent opportunities, subtle recognitions, small moments of alignment. But if your mind is attacking you the entire time, you won't recognize any of it. You will sabotage what is trying to find you before it even reaches you. And here is something that needs to be said clearly. Your inner voice has been trained for years. It learned to speak to you the way it learned to speak to you. Every time someone criticized you in childhood and you couldn't respond, that voice archived it. Every time you were demanded too much of, that voice learned to demand. Every time you were compared, that voice learned to compare. And now, in adulthood, it keeps repeating the same pattern as if it were your truth. But it isn't. It is just memory disguised as instinct. And this week, you have the rare chance to notice the difference between the two. When you can hear this voice and identify that it is not yours, but rather an echo of everything that hurt you, you begin to reclaim a space within yourself that was hijacked a long time ago. The second thing you cannot do this week is overload your nervous system. And this is where many people get lost without realizing it. Too much stimulus, too much opinion, too much screen time, too much noise, too much trying to force everything at once. People think that being busy is the same as being productive, but spiritually, excess stimulus leaves you completely blind. Because when your mind is overloaded, your intuition goes mute. And this week, your intuition will speak in very subtle ways, small feelings, quick instincts, little moments where something just feels right or just feels wrong. But if you are drowning in noise, you won't hear it. And then we reach June 4th. At this point in the week, something rare happens on the subtle plane. The moon reaches a moment of symbolic withdrawal. Many people will hear this and think that the energy becomes weaker, less emotional, less potent. But that is not at all what is really happening. What is happening is much more interesting. For a brief moment, the moon, this force that constantly pulls the oceans, the tides, and symbolically, our own emotional nature, takes a step back. Not because it is abandoning you, but because it is giving you space. And spiritually, this changes everything. Think of it as a mentor who has been guiding you for months, perhaps even years, giving signs, nudging you, teaching you, helping you understand what to release, what to heal, what to overcome. But eventually, there comes a moment when the mentor stops holding your hand. Not because you failed, but because you are finally ready to walk alone. This is the energy of this week. This is the week when emotional gravity loosens. Old emotional patterns may seem weaker. Certain connections may suddenly seem less intense. Things that used to pull your attention, your energy, your focus, may not hit the same way. And for some people, this will be uncomfortable at first. Because many people don't realize how addicted they became to being emotionally pulled by everything around them, by the moods of others, by the opinions of others, by the validation of others. But this week this pull weakens. And when that happens, something powerful is revealed. What do you really want when no one is pulling you in any direction? The moment life stops pushing you, your true direction appears. And most people never have a week like this. A week so free of emotional interference, so free of external influence, so free of unconscious pressure. But it is precisely here at this point that the deepest layer of what is happening enters. Because there is one thing that almost no one has noticed yet, and that this week will expose with undeniable force. One of the strangest things about spiritual growth is that it rarely announces itself when it arrives. Most of the time, it doesn't appear with signs in the sky, dramatic events, or some great external revelation. Sometimes it starts with something much quieter. You simply stop wanting what you used to want. And this week, many people will feel exactly that. Things that once seemed normal may start to feel strangely disconnected. Places you used to like, conversations you used to keep, goals you used to pursue. Even parts of your routine that seemed automatic may suddenly feel empty, forced, or simply no longer feel like you. And this can be quite confusing when you don't understand what is happening. Because on the outside, nothing seems wrong. Your life may continue to be functional. The people around you may continue to expect the same version of you. Your habits may technically continue to work. But on the inside, something has begun to resist. And this resistance is not weakness. It is direction. Many people confuse spiritual redirection with confusion. They think that because they are losing interest, they are losing motivation. They think that because something no longer excites them, something must be wrong. But what if it is the opposite? What if you are simply being pushed toward a life that your current identity cannot yet fully recognize? Because growth doesn't always add something to your life. Sometimes it takes away your appetite for what no longer belongs to it. The instant your old life stops exciting you, your next life has already begun to call you. You are being invited to stop pretending that your soul still belongs in rooms it left long ago. And once that happens, there is no going back to who you were with the same level of comfort. Not because life is punishing you, but because life is repositioning you. And now is the time for the comment of the day. Sometimes the wait is longer because the blessing is greater. Waiting messes with your head. It makes you question your path, your timing, and even yourself. But sometimes the delay is not a denial. Sometimes things take longer, because what is being prepared is greater than you expected. And while you wait, you are also becoming someone ready to receive. That part matters too. Thank you for sharing that reminder. There is a concept that has been gaining a lot of attention lately, not just spiritually, but psychologically as well. The idea that every important decision creates a fork in the road. Every time you say yes, every time you say no, every time you stay, leave, speak, or choose to remain silent, a path is chosen. And most people have no idea how many versions of themselves they have already created just through hesitation. Because somewhere there is a version of you that already did what you keep putting off. Somewhere there is a version of you that sent the message, that left the relationship, that started the project, that changed environments, that trusted their instinct, that stopped waiting for the perfect timing. And the reason this week feels different is because this is not an ordinary week. This is a week of forks in the road, and weeks of forks in the road have a very specific feeling. Think for a moment about all the times you felt that something needed to change, and you didn't change. Each of those times was a fork in the road. Each time you heard a small voice inside you saying, "This is not your place," and you stayed anyway. A fork in the road. Each time something called you in a new direction and you pretended you didn't hear it. A fork in the road. And it's not that you were punished for it. It's that each of those choices created extra weight. A weight of unlived things, of paths not taken, of parts of you that were left on pause waiting for you to come back. And what makes this week special is precisely this. It comes to offer you a chance to return some of those weights, to recover some of those parts, to meet again with versions of you that remained frozen in time, waiting for authorization to exist. It is no coincidence that so many people are waking up with vivid dreams during this period. It is no coincidence that so many old memories are coming back for no apparent reason. It is your psyche organizing what goes and what stays before the next chapter begins. A restlessness that makes no sense, a dissatisfaction with the ordinary that almost feels physical, a strange inability to fully enjoy what used to distract you, the feeling that something is pulling you, but you can't explain exactly what. And many people will label this as anxiety, but what if it isn't anxiety at all? What if your inner compass is just reacting to the fact that you are standing before a real crossroads? Because deep down, your spirit always knows when a moment matters. And that is why this week, even when you can't put it into words, it hits differently. What is taking shape now is bigger than you can rationalize. And the strongest point of all of this hasn't even arrived yet. There is something happening to many people now that almost no one in spiritual spaces comments on with honesty. And because no one comments on it, many people start to think there is something wrong with them when this starts to happen. They think they are losing their connection, that they are losing their discipline, that they are losing their consistency, or that in some way they are falling behind on their own path. But what is happening is much deeper than that. Many people right now are not tired because life has been difficult. They are tired because for too long they have been trying to stay spiritually connected all the time, always healing, always growing, always trying to fix one more wound, release one more pattern, understand one more lesson, raise one more standard of living, become a better version of themselves every week, without ever stopping long enough to just breathe. And after a while, even growth becomes pressure. Even healing becomes performance. Even spirituality becomes one more identity that people feel they need to maintain. And this week, this pressure starts to become impossible to ignore. Between June 1st and June 7th, many people will feel a deep tiredness, but not the kind that sleep solves in a night. This is the tiredness of someone who has spent too much time feeling that they needed to be always evolving, always learning, always doing internal work as if stopping would waste potential. But who told you that? Who convinced you that every moment of your life needs to be optimized, understood, healed, or transformed into a lesson? Because if you study growth for real, not just the spiritual but the biological, the mental, the physical, you begin to realize something powerful. Muscles don't grow during the workout, they grow during recovery. They grow when the body stops fighting, stops resisting, stops performing, and lets the process complete itself on its own. And spiritually, you are not built any differently. Some of your greatest expansions don't happen when you push harder. They happen when you finally stop interfering. That is what makes this week so powerful. This week is almost as if life were handing you an authorization. Authorization to stop chasing every sign. Authorization to stop analyzing every feeling. Authorization to stop transforming every emotional change into a spiritual emergency that needs to be resolved immediately. And pay attention to this, because it is easy to forget. All of nature operates in cycles of expansion and contraction. The day needs the night. The tree needs the winter. The seed needs the darkness under the earth before it becomes a sprout. Nothing in life grows in a straight line without pauses. Nothing. But modern humans have been trained to believe that stopping is failure, that resting is waste, that silence is empty. And it is exactly this belief that has been drying so many people out from the inside. Because you are not here to produce all the time. You are here to live, and living includes stopping. Because some things in your life are not waiting for more effort. They are waiting for space. And this week, if you stop looking for answers just for a moment, if you stop forcing growth, if you stop trying to make something happen every second of every day, you might be shocked by what starts to find you on its own. You might find clarity without chasing it, peace without having to deserve it, direction without needing to force it. And it is at this point that people realize something that most never understand. Rest is not the opposite of spiritual growth. Rest is where growth finishes what the struggle started. As we walk deeper into this week, we eventually reach June 7th. And this is one of the most misunderstood moments of the cycle, because most people hear the word closure and immediately think of loss, of things falling apart, of things being taken away, of doors closing, of chapters ending. But that is not what this moment is about. Not if you understand what is really happening beneath the surface. This is not a moment of ending. It is a moment of recalibration. It is the instant when life begins to show you what still belongs to your future and what you have been dragging along out of fear, habit, guilt, comfort, or simple emotional attachment. And this can be uncomfortable, because many people don't realize how much of their own life is being sustained by things they stopped needing a long time ago. Old dynamics, old identities, old ambitions, old versions of success, old relationships with people, with money, with attention, with validation, even old stories about who they believe they are. For a while, holding on to these things may feel safe. It may feel productive. It may even feel responsible. But eventually, holding on to what has already expired starts to cost more than letting go. This moment of recalibration has a specific way of exposing the difference between what you truly value and what you are simply afraid to let go of. And those two things are not the same. Some things don't leave your life because you failed. They leave because your future doesn't fit through the same door. This is the great discovery of this week. The movement you are feeling is not destruction. It is relocation. You are not losing. You are being repositioned to a place you cannot yet see. And the strongest step you can take now might not be to fight more. It might be to trust enough to let go of what was never yours to carry forever. Sometimes, the bravest thing a soul can do is stop negotiating with what it already knows has ended. Let's remember what this week is really bringing. You are entering a window that amplifies the state you choose to live in. You cannot turn against yourself. You cannot overload your nervous system. You need to understand that emotional gravity will loosen, that your appetite for what no longer belongs to your life will start to disappear, and that this tiredness you feel is not weakness. It is your body pulling you into the right rhythm before life asks more of you. And perhaps the most important point of all of this is this. The people who will look at June a few months from now and say, honestly, that was where everything started to change for me, are not necessarily the loudest. They are not the people making big announcements. They are not the ones trying to impress anyone. They are not the ones waiting for perfect conditions, perfect confidence, or some magical sign from the universe to finally move. They are the people who are having the conversation they have been avoiding for months. The ones who are finally starting the project they kept saying they would start when the right moment arrived. The ones who are distancing themselves from habits that have been stealing their energy for years. The ones who wake up on any given morning and realize that they are simply no longer available for the life they have been tolerating. And the most beautiful part is that no one will notice this at first, because the biggest changes usually seem boring in the beginning. No one applauds when you decide to respect yourself more. No one throws a party when you stop betraying your own boundaries. No one sees the moment you silently decide that you are tired of shrinking just to fit into places you already left. But these moments change everything. Some people will wake up this week and feel an unusual desire for slower mornings. They will notice that the body no longer wants to be thrown into the noise, the pressure, the productivity the way it usually is. They will feel less desire to run. And many people will judge this. They will call it laziness. They will think they are losing discipline. But it might not be any of that. It might be your system detecting rhythms that your conscious mind hasn't captured yet. Forcing movement at the wrong time doesn't create momentum. It creates resistance. You don't need to have all the answers this week. You just need the courage to keep moving with what feels real. And if this first week of June really is the beginning of something bigger for you, then perhaps you have never been late. Perhaps you have arrived exactly when you were supposed to. And this is where I ask you a question. And I want you to answer in the comments because this answer matters more than you imagine. What is it that you are still holding on to, even knowing deep down that it has already ended? It could be a person. It could be a version of you. It could be a story. It could be an old dream that no longer fits who you are becoming. Write it in the comments. Your answer might be exactly what someone else needs to read to find courage this week. And before I let you go, I have one last thing to tell you. Because if you felt this message from the beginning, if every word seemed to be calling you by name, it is because you are not like most people. And you never were. You were born seeing what others don't see, and you spent your life apologizing for it. Stay silent for another year and lose who you were. The next journey we are opening is called The Awakening Protocol. And it is the end of the lie you were taught to live. If you felt throughout this video that something within you was touched in a place no one else reaches, it is because your time has come. The registration link is pinned down here. Limited spots. Those who enter before the turn. I will see you on the other side. Trust what is moving. Trust what is leaving. Trust what is pulling you forward. Even if you can't explain it yet, you are not lost. You are arriving.